Yesterday morning, somebody forwarded me an email that said, I'm a big global warming guy, so they can't vote for me. All right. Yesterday afternoon, I got an email from somebody who said, I'm anti-public transit, so they can't vote for me.
Okay, so yeah, you're on both sides of the issue, and on the wrong side each time, which is interesting.
So I'd say that, the most interesting of the two, talking about light rail, is that the person who sent this email had seen on my website where I had written something about light rail, and that, I didn't think light rail was appropriate for Scottsdale. And to them, that equated to me being opposed to public transportation.
Right. Well, and that's exactly not the point. Public transportation is something that we should have a lot of. The problem with light rail is, first of all, and primarily from a cost standpoint, it's a budget buster. And once you commit to light rail and take the federal money to do it, you can't back out. You have to maintain the system. So you end up trapped in something that may not work for the city, number one. Number two, beyond that, as far as anybody with global warming concerns, light rail has not proven to reduce a carbon footprint of an area. Yet, ridership would have to go way beyond where it is currently to even get there. So those would be some of my concerns with it right off the bat, not to mention it not fitting the character.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when, I was part of the Scottsdale Citizens Transportation Study Committee a few years ago when we first started talking about light rail. And just going off the numbers that Valley Metro Rail published, and the HDR was the contractor that built a lot of the light rail system that we have in place today, looking at their numbers alone, the telling statistics for me were the capital cost to build it,
right,
about $110,000 per rider, which is a pretty staggering number. And the fact that the average speed of transit on the light rail is essentially the same as a bus.
Right.
And to your last point, the pollution issue, it actually showed that at several intersections in town, they were going to increase the wait times for vehicular traffic to the point where the pollution is actually going to increase in those local areas.
Which defeats the purpose, so then the issue becomes, is it solving traffic? And my argument would be, and you look in the places that they're currently using it, is while it takes a few people off the streets, it is such a hindrance to traffic flow, left turns and everything else, every place that it goes, that I have no trouble believing the folks that say it actually makes traffic worse. So, and my theory comes back with these mass transportation ideas the same way it always has. Light rail and subway systems and elevated trains and things like that, in places where they work, they always have one thing in common, and that is no place to park.
Yes.
We do have decent parking. We'd like it to be better in some places in the city, but we do have decent parking, and my thought is the only way we're going to make light rail very popular and viable is to ruin that. And why would we ruin something to justify a budget buster? I don't think it makes sense. I think it's a bad idea all the way around. I think the only way that we make light rail acceptable to the average Scottsdale voter is by wrecking downtown and making it such a snarled mess that people will begin to rethink it. And even at that point, I don't think it's going to solve the problem.
Right.
But I think that if it gets bad enough, people will grasp at anything. Yeah. So to me, let's preserve our character and our character of the city, and not spend the money, not create the character wrecking debacle that light rail is, and not jeopardize and threaten all the businesses along its route, like has been proven every place it goes.
Absolutely. That's the. I knew have some friends that have a business on Apache down in Tempe. And they were almost put out of business by the light rail. And this is a business that's been there 60, 65 years. Small mom and pop auto repair facility, and the city absolutely did nothing to help them with that situation. In fact, they have a real problem even now, even after it's built and operating. They have a problem with customers having accessibility into the front of their business. Their parking was already limited. And so now the customers have to drive, down the block and make a U-turn across the light rail track to get back if they happen to be going the wrong direction. So it's a real problem, for businesses trying to stay in business during the construction and even after.
Right.
It's a huge problem.
Well, and to me, again, to your earlier comment, this is not about being against mass transit. We need mass transit. You've had some great ideas on a better designed bus system, these new lower platform vehicles, and I've seen them around in some other cities where they are being used. We can get some green energy solutions, some diesel-powered, biodiesel-powered vehicles, things of that nature. that can actually do this and do this pretty well. We can have adaptable routes. I know some people see that as a downside, and they say that one of the advantages of light rail is it creates consistent traffic in a certain area for businesses. But as you point out, the evidence is to the contrary, that it actually works. So why don't we just come up with good bus routes which can be far more flexible, far more adaptable, and far more nimble than light rail, and commit to them with good vehicles and a good management system and make it work? And I think we can.
Absolutely, and flexibility is a big issue with the rail systems, being fixed, by definition, fixed en route. You can never solve the problems of the bus system with the light rail. You always are going to need the bus to spur off of the light rail line and go other places in the city, because you can't run the rail everywhere.
That's, actually, John, that's a great point. I mean, you can't eliminate buses with light rail. That's exactly right. So conversely, though, I think a well-established bus system can eliminate the need for light rail.
Yeah, I think so.
I really think we can do that. And frankly, I think the will in the city is there to do that. My concern with the direction we're going is, we've had our city council spend so much time dropping the development standards and increasing the height and density along Scottsdale Road, that we are creating a very serious future problem. I mean, and this is not just light rail. This affects Chaparral Road. There's been a big effort to protect that road from widening for those nearby residents, but then they put Portales right at the end of it. These things, you can't do this and not have consequences.
That's right.
So that's my concern, is I think we're laying the groundwork for a problem that we've got to, that we'll have to solve in the future, and we need to stop now.
And a lot of people don't realize that, your example, Portales, is a good one. Represents a 300% increase in the density that was originally approved for that site. So we're not only dumping more residents into the area that has limited service from, Chaparral Road, but we're dumping, 3 times as many residents in there as were originally approved. So that's a huge problem.
And it's right down the street from Blue Sky, which is 13
Right.
stories. And
Right.
again, massively exceeded the density for the area. So these are the concerns. I really do have a concern for that area. I think there's been a push by our council members to say, hey, listen, we need this, and this will add customers for retail businesses and things around the area. But, you chase some people away with that too. And a great example of that is, we're here in my house, my wife and I are almost exactly equidistant between Paradise Valley Mall and Fashion Square. And we prefer Fashion Square. It's a nicer mall, it's got better stores, and we prefer to spend our shopping dollars in Scottsdale. But when we need something quickly, like before a business trip or something of that sort, if you need shoes or a belt or something like that, we've now gotten to the point where we go to PV Mall, because it's so much faster to get in and out, because they don't have the traffic and parking problems that Fashion Square has. And now that we've added not only Portales and Blue Sky, but we've approved the height increases and density increases on the Hovey project as well, and again, our council looked at every one of these individually and said, this project won't wreck this area. And they got to the next one and they said, this project won't wreck this area. They got to the next one and said, this project won't wreck this area. And they're probably all right, although I think Blue Sky might even do it on its own. But
Yeah.
there is that argument which they succumb to every time. And the reality of it is, you can't do that at a one at a time and then create a whole stack of them and
Right.
think you don't have a problem.
Absolutely.
That's the problem with making exceptions to the rules and making the exception become the rule. And that's what we've done.
Absolutely, and that's the purpose of the general plan, is to make the process standardized and so you don't have, these unexpected tremendous surges in population from, enabling the density. And then you need solutions like light rail. You need solutions
Right.
ostensibly to, not that I think it would solve the problems that are going to be created. And on the topic of light rail and, the rail versus bus system, one of the things that occurs to me is that to a great extent, light rail and bus kind of compete with each other. They compete for funding. The light rail system loses money, it hemorrhages money, and the people that operate the system, Valley Metro, have shown us that they're willing to rob funds from the bus system to
Right.
keep the light rail going, and that's like the 510 bus line that was just killed off from Scottsdale into downtown Phoenix. So that creates an issue, as well.
Well, I think you're right on that, and I think the ultimate thing that our city government needs to recognize is that by far, citizens of Scottsdale, I mean, there are things it's hard to know where people fall on various things, but this one's not a tough one.
Right.
This is an overwhelming resistance from the Scottsdale voter, And I think our city government needs to respect it and not put in the things in place that are going to break down the will of people to make light rail more palatable. I think that's a mistake, because I think ultimately those things are all negative. All the things that we would have to do to break down the will of the voter to accept light rail, all are significantly negative to the city of Scottsdale's character and livability.
Absolutely.
So I think we need to leave it the way it is, listen to the voters. They've certainly made their voices clear. And let's find a good mass transit system, and let's not depend on federal funds, and let's not depend on light rail to get us out of the traffic snarls and things that we're at this point beginning to create.
Absolutely.